These are Victoria plums. The tree is laden with them, and I'm going to make some plum jam, and I'll video it so you can see just how easy it is. One of the big problems with plums is that when your tree's got hundreds on, everybody else's tree has hundreds on, and you can't give them away. So I'll pick the plums and green gauges, but I always leave a few on. There's nothing nicer than going out early morning and just picking a plum and wonderful, sweet and juicy, really nice. Beautiful, really beautiful. Well, it's hammering down with rain outside. It's Friday the 26th of August. So this is one of these days when you can turn your hand to something else. And today I've postponed it for as long as possible, but I have to make this plum jam. These plums are beginning to fall off this tree outside here. So I've been and picked a bucket full, and I'll set to and I'll make some plum jam with them. You can stew them and freeze them just as stewed plums, but I like plum jam, it's very nice. So there's a bucket full of plums. I've tipped them into the sink. I don't know how many pounds there are there, but a fair number. Be careful when you're picking them. I've just been stung by a wasp on my fingers. It's a bit sore, but so now these need washing and de-stoning and then weighing, so I can work out how much sugar I need for them. So I'll get that underway. It'll take a fair while, mind. So I need to weigh out 5 pounds of stoned plums, and I'll just make it in batches, 5 pounds of plums at a time, till they're all gone, however long that takes. And then put them in the jam pan. This is the jam pan I use, and the family's had it for ages. With a jam pan you want one which is quite substantial, nice and thick, and a good thick base to it. One of the problems when you're making jam is if you have a thin base on the jam pot, you burn the sugar in the bottom if you're not careful, and you end up with a dreadful toffee taste to the jam, sort of burnt sugar taste to it, and it won't set. So you need a good thick, what it's made of, it doesn't really matter. I mean, this happens to be aluminium, but you get copper ones as well, or you can get stainless steel ones. But make sure it's a substantial thing, not a little tinny thing, which is no use at all for making jam in bulk. So I just need to add half a pint of water to the plums. 5 pounds of plums, half a pint of water, and then I boil them or stew them for about 10 minutes until they're nice and soft. So while the plums are simmering there for about 10-15 minutes, stirring them occasionally, I need to get the jars ready. You normally get about twice as much jam as fruit, so for 5 pounds of fruit I'll probably get 10 pounds of jam, or maybe just under. And the jars have to be hot and sterilised, and I do that in an oven, so I just put the jars on this tray at the bottom of the oven and stick them in the oven at about 120 degrees Celsius, and I just leave them in there until I need them. I've got screw top jars, which makes it much easier. Don't put these in the oven, otherwise this plastic seal here becomes soft and might melt, and you won't get a perfect seal when you put the lid back on the jar. So these just need to be very, very clean, so that you don't get moulds or fungus growing on top of your jam. The other thing I need are a couple of just small white plates, and they have to be very cold, so I just stick mine in the freezer, but you could just as easily put them in the fridge. You need these when you're doing the most critical part, is working out when the jam will set. And I'll look at that later. So as the fruit is simmering, I just squash it up against the side of the pan, just to break it down. Oh, that's looking very nice. Well, that's about ready. The fruit is all nice and soft. I've taken out any bits I didn't like the look of, with some brown skin and the odd stone which I've dropped in amongst them. The last thing you want is a stone in jam. You smash your blooming teeth on it. Or even worse, it'll be somebody else's tooth. So I now need to add 6.5 pounds of sugar, just ordinary cane sugar I just put in. So I just put it in a bit at a time and make sure that before I add any more, it's dissolved. You don't want any resting on the bottom of the pan, otherwise it will burn and turn into toffee. So I stir it, checking right round the edges and across the middle, feeling for that grittiness you get if the sugar isn't dissolved, and it all seems to be okay. Whether the jam will set or not depends on how much of this stuff called pectin it has in it, and fruits which are quite sour contain a fair amount of pectin, but softer fruits such as strawberries and raspberries, and occasionally plums, and these were quite ripe, they don't have enough pectin to cause the jam to set, and you end up with some dreadful runny stuff. So you need to add commercial pectin. You just buy it from, well, supermarkets sell it, but jam making shops or these shops that sell cooking utensils, they normally have it in at this time of year. And for 5 pounds of fruit I need 1 bottle of this commercial pectin, which they've made from green apples. But this set business is crucial. If you don't get the set right, you've wasted your time completely. To help the set, I need to add the juice of 1 lemon to 5 pounds of plums. So there it is, and I'll pour it in. Right, now I'll turn the heat up until I get a rolling boil. Be very careful here that you don't boil it over the top. So if you get this sugar solution all over the top of your cooker, down your kitchen cupboards, it's absolutely horrendous stuff to get off. So stand by it and watch it until it gets to the boil, and then adjust the heat accordingly. So I've now got a full rolling boil, and I'll stop stirring at this point. Just adjust that heat so it doesn't come over the top. And I'll leave it boiling for 4 minutes, 5 pounds of fruit for 4 minutes. If it was for 2.5 pounds of fruit, it would just be for 2 minutes. Well, it's been on this rolling boil for 4 minutes now, and at this point I put in my commercial pectin. In this case I need 1 bottle. And give it a good stir. Now this is the crucial time. I need to test if it will set, and to do that I need one of these little plates out of the freezer. And I simply take some of the juice and drip it onto the plate, and I just leave it to cool. While it's doing that, I take the pan off the heat. Now, this is the crucial bit. When you push it with your finger, is there a skin? You can see that slight skin in front of my finger there. It's not quite there, so I'll just put it back on the heat and continue the boil for another 2 minutes, no more. The thing about a set for jam, if you boil it too much, you get past the stage where it'll set, and you just have to keep boiling and boiling. You eventually end up with plum toffee in the bottom, which is dreadful stuff. Right gooey mass, and it'll never set. So we'll put it back on the heat for 2 more minutes and then try this again. So I'll clean this plate, put it back in the freezer. So I'll just push this with my finger, and there you can see a skin. That's what we call a set. And the jam is now ready to put into jars. It's best, before you put it into the jars, just to let it cool for about 15 minutes. If you put it in the jars when it's very hot, then the fruit tends to rise to the top, which you don't want. So I'll just leave it there for 15 minutes to cool slightly, and then I'll get the jars out and fill them. So there's the jam ready to put into jars, and here are my hot jars, fresh from the oven. And ideally you need one of these things. These are a real bonus. specially designed for putting hot fruit into jam jars, and I fill them until they're within half an inch of the top. There's almost 12 jars of plum jam. Just look at that colour. Ooh, wonderful stuff. Yeah, I need to put the tops on now while it's still hot, otherwise I won't get the vacuum inside to preserve them. So the tops need to go on and screwed very tight. Well, there it is, plum jam. There's about 50 pounds of it there. That's not bad for an afternoon. Fortunately, plum trees only produce big crops every couple of years or so. So you don't have this every year, which is just as well. Well, there it is. That looks very, very tasty. Piece of crusty bread. Nice thick piece of butter on there, and douse it with this stuff. Plum jam, but it's wonderful. I'll go in a minute. Well, there it is, plum jam. Wonderful. Really, really nice. Highly recommended. Goodbye.